Hi, everyone. Welcome we've made it to episode 14 of Spirit Hub's virtual happy hour. Right here, we're joined with Cody. He's from Casey Jones Distillery in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Cody, you want to say hello?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Awesome, actually. So just to give everybody a heads up of who we are, Spirit Hub is an online retailer that proudly supports independent craft distilleries across the United States, and that's independent meaning independently owned. We are your direct-to-consumer platform in the state of Illinois. We deliver to every single zip code in the state of Illinois at the current moment. Also trying to get to multiple states in the future, which is super exciting. Outside of that, we carry over 200 distilleries with over 1,300 products on our platform. Obviously, we've done this before. This virtual happy hour is supposed to be super fun and entertaining. Outside of that, it kind of gives you a better picture of the distilleries that we carry and the more of that, the people behind the brand. So Cody, that's kind of my little spiel. If you want to get into what's going on with Casey Jones.
Yeah, no, happy to. So again, I'm Cody Turner. I'm the online sales manager for Casey Jones Distillery. There's a good chance if you've seen some Facebook ads or Google ads with Casey Jones moniker, that was courtesy of me. So that's kind of my role with the group. I'm stepping in for the owners, Peg and AJ, today to help with this virtual happy hour.
Awesome. So obviously you guys are really unique. You guys have been around for a while. What can you tell us about the distillery? What's the historical points? You guys got moonshine, right?
So like every good distillery has a good story. We're no different in that regards whatsoever. We were actually founded in 2014 by Arlen Casey Jones and his wife Peg Hayes. And Arlen Casey Jones is the grandson of the distillery's namesake, Casey Jones. Casey Jones was an infamous still maker during the time of Prohibition. And he actually really was at the epicenter of moonshine and bootlegging and still making in what's referred to as Golden Pond, Kentucky, which is like the land between the lakes area. He had dealings with the law, obviously, several times because the stills were so good. But he himself did not actually make moonshine, but he would make these stills for people. And they were very unique in the way that they were produced. They're actually a square pot still rather than the round style that you typically see. And we'll obviously talk about the benefits of that as we get into talking about the product. But AJ has taken that same design and built a still there in Hopkinsville, Kentucky that we use to make our product every day.
Perfect. So you guys started with moonshine, obviously. Can you go through what you guys make? What's the assortment like?
Yeah, so we obviously started with moonshine when we first started distilling, and we've got a couple of different clear moonshines that we make. There's a Casey's Cut, Total Eclipse Moonshine, which we actually have a bottle of right here that was bottled during the eclipse a couple of years ago, which obviously made some major headlines. And then we're doing some really cool stuff with like our flavored moonshines. We've got like a muscadine grape, we've got an apple, and we've got a peach. Those flavors are all unique in that they're really more natural flavor. They're not that saccharine sweet flavor that you would sort of associate with some of the flavored moonshines that are out there. And then, of course, we've got this barrel cut moonshine that we're going to talk about a little bit later right here. And it's pretty cool. We'll get into what makes that so unique in here in a bit. But then we did add our bourbon last year around November. So that's where we're at.
And we just brought that on board too. And yeah. I think that might actually be a really good transition into where we want to go. So Casey Jones Small Batch Kentucky Bourbon is newly on Spirit Hub's platform. So go ahead and get it while supplies last. But definitely, I think, we want to hear more about it. So it's all you.
Yeah, bourbon's really like it's a seminal moment for a Kentucky distiller to be able to bring a product like this to market. And proud is probably the word that I would use to most encapsulate the feeling of actually being able to bring this as a Kentucky small craft distillery. Our bourbon right now, I mean, you can probably see on the camera how dark that is. This is actually a year old. It's just a year old. And that's really surprising to a lot of people to see a bourbon that's only aged a year so far and to actually see it this dark. And some of the secrets behind our success with this is, we age in smaller barrels. They're all wood fired. We never use gas in the barrels that we would fire. And there's much to do with our still, which I mentioned earlier, being a square pot. The joints and miters on that, we use silver. We don't use stainless. The process for heating up our mash, it's much more even because it's a flatter surface on the bottom. And, our master distiller, AJ, he's just really picky about what runs we get off of that still, talking about the tails and the heads off of each run. Everything that comes off that thing is crystal clear.
Awesome. Do you have any flavor notes or any tasting notes that you could provide us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, our bourbon, it's really noted as having a sweet sort of caramel flavor to it with hints of vanilla. And then just a dab of tobacco, surprisingly, and oak, and then a very slight pepper at the end. It's a much smoother bourbon than you might anticipate for being, again, just a year old.
Perfect. So outside of that, I think more people would like to hear more about the moonshine side of it. So what else do you have there for us?
Yeah. So, we briefly touched on the Total Eclipse earlier, which was bottled during the eclipse a couple of years ago. And then we mentioned this barrel cut, right? And this is a really unique product for most moonshines, actually, moonshine brands out there. This is, as you might imagine, a barrel-aged moonshine. And so what we do with this product is we actually take our Casey's cut, which is a clear, fairly similar to the Total Eclipse, and we age this in the same process that you would age a bourbon. Now, these are actually aged different amounts, depends on what proof we've got, what rum we've got. They're produced in very limited batches, but some of them are aged as much as 4 years, which is really quite incredible. And I'll tell you, even though it's a moonshine and does not have the same mash bill as a bourbon, this product right here will give a lot of bourbons a run for its money.
Got it. And then when you talk about the differences between the two, one being barrel cut and one being a bourbon pretty much aged, are you only referring to the mash bills being the difference between the two?
Yes, absolutely. So, bourbons by mandate, they have to follow a particular mash bill, and then moonshines are corn-based whiskeys. So they've got a different mash bill compared to bourbons as well. So yeah, absolutely.
And then do you have tasting notes on this one? Are they much different in comparison
really,
to the
yeah,
bourbon?
They really are. So what you could say about the barrel cut, it's very unique and has a sweet corn note when you first drink it, when it first hits the palate, and a bit of spice with that as well. So sweet and a little bit of spice as well. And then kind of finishes with a slight butterscotch, and it's a bit harsher. It's not quite as smooth as your bourbons are going to be. So it's almost in that, the finishing notes are almost in that rye territory. It's really interesting how it finishes. It's a very unique product. And I would say if one of the things that would probably surprise people the most about any of the moonshines produced by Casey Jones Distillery is that, when you hear moonshine, you just automatically associate that sort of ethanol, high corn flavor or scent with the product. And I mean, I'll say even something as high proof as our still proof there at the back we've got behind me, it still does not have a strong corn flavor. I mean, it's present, but it's not corn forward. Yeah.
I'm glad you touched on that because people are scared of moonshine. Just to hear the moonshine, you hear about, how harsh it can be and all that stuff. So I'm glad that you guys have, better tones or just better flavors when it comes to your moonshine. So definitely appreciate you going deeper into each of your spirits. I love the story. Obviously, there's a lot of history behind the brand. But next, we're going to jump into some really awesome cocktails.
Perfect.
And welcome back to episode 14 of Spirit Hub's Virtual Happy Hour. We're here with Cody from Casey Jones Distillery in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Cody's got some awesome products, probably also some better cocktails that he's going to be making with those. So Cody, take it away.
Perfect. Thanks again for having me. I think what we have to start with is a fan favorite at the distillery, and that's just our take on the old fashioned. And this particular cocktail we're calling the Old Geezer. Now, if you've not been living under a rock for the last, umpteen years, you've probably heard of an old fashioned. We think our take on it's maybe a slightly sweeter affair, just like Southern hospitality, just a little bit sweeter. So really what you need to do to make one of these drinks is it's pretty straightforward. One of the key ingredients is you got to have some good cherries. Got to have some good cherries. So none of that maraschino stuff. Find yourself some good cherries and put those into a shaker or a muddler, your choice. It really doesn't matter. You can even put it in a lowball glass if you want to. And what we're going to do is we're going to just muddle these up. And this is going to add a nice sweet flavor and a bit of texture to the drink. So we've got some cherries we're just going to muddle up here at the bottom, just get them nice and crushed. Really straightforward. And, as one of the best things about a drink like this is you can add as many as you want to or as little as you want to. So you can flavor to your taste. On top of that, we're going to take some Angostura bitters. Just put a dash in here. Real straightforward. Now we're going to add our Casey Jones Small Batch Bourbon. And again, around our parts, we like to do about 1.5 ounces. So I refer to that as the glug, glug, glug method. Of course, if you want to get fancy and measure it out, you're absolutely free to do so. And then one of the keys to success here is you need some good water. Mima's Tap's not going to cut it, but get yourself some good drinking water. You're going to put that in here, probably about 1 ounce of that with your concoction. And you can shake this up or you can mix it up. It's really up to you. And we're going to pour this over some ice, just like so. Oh, God, I wish they had smell-o-vision because it smells really good.
One day in the future, we'll have it.
One day in the future, absolutely. So we'll pour this over the rocks, and then we're going to add just an orange wedge. That's all I got to do. And of course, you can put the orange juice in here if you want to. Some people like to get really fancy and express the peel over the drink, but we're going to just do it classy. Squeeze a little bit of orange juice in there. That's about it.
Well, that's really easy. Yeah, right. That's super easy. Thanks for making that. The one question that some people might have is why the addition of water?
Yeah, so if you do your research, you'll see that, and especially if you're a bourbon aficionado, anytime you taste bourbons neat, which is obviously without ice, adding a little bit of good water to that bourbon will bring out more of the flavors of that bourbon. And so we do the same thing in the cocktail. We've got our bourbon in here. We just add a little bit of water to it. It expresses more of the flavors than it normally would. It's a great question.
Well, thanks for going into that. I know a lot of people have questions. I sometimes question it. I've done this enough to figure it out, but thank you for going deeper into that. So thank you for showing us that. Next, you've got another awesome, probably more refreshing cocktail using the barrel cut, I believe.
Yes. So on the lighter side, we have these fantastic Moonarita kits. And so what we've got here is an old style, moonshiner style jug that says, make yourself a Moonarita on it. You probably can't see this on the camera, but what's great is it's actually marked to indicate what you need to pour in it and how much and the proportions and everything. It's completely easy. It couldn't be any simpler, honestly. So what we had here is just says fill here with margarita mix. Now, it just so happens that a margarita mix of this size, which I'm sure you can probably figure out what type it is, literally fills up the bottle exactly to where you need it to. So we've measured it out to be precise with just one of these bottles. So we'll fill this up.
How long is this drink going to last us?
How long is this going to last?
How long is this
Depends on what kind of mood you're in.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, on a warm summer day, you could probably get serves about 4 or 6 people. right, so just gonna finish this out here real quick. Be careful not to spill it here. Great, fantastic. So like I said, one bottle fills it perfectly to that line. No questions asked. And I think this is the 33 ounce, the 1 liter size. You see them store all the time, and you know what brand it is. So we'll just leave it at that. And then your next piece is to add one of our clear moonshines. Now you can use Total Eclipse like we're going to do today, or you could use Casey's Cut, or if you wanted to do something higher proof, that's totally up to you. So, and then we've got our next fill line is just right up here. And so we're going to pour just enough of this.
I need to get me one of those jugs.
Oh, they're super cool. Perfect. So now we've got our Total Eclipse in there. And then here's where the flavor comes in. So if you were making an apple one, you'd use our apple cut. And if you want a peach, you're going to use peach. And it's, again, just marked right there on the bottle to show you exactly how much you need to pour in to get the flavor.
And then while you've got the peach on and you're pouring, do you consider the flavored ones much sweeter, or are they still kind of on the bitter side?
No, they're definitely sweeter than the clears, but I just don't want to turn people off to that notion of, like, when you think of a flavored whiskey, or in this case a moonshine, I think typically most people think, wow, I mean, that's just going to be like super, super, super sweet. And the flavors here are just much more subdued. They're much more organic or natural flavor tasting. I mean, if that makes any kind of sense, it's like they're really quite pleasing on the palate. And, with some flavored liquors, the Coors especially, like just a sip of it and it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
This is definitely not the case with the muscadine or the peach or the apple. It's much more subdued. So here's our peach Moonarita, and I'm sure you can see with the coloration that we've got all the peach on top. So what we're going to do is we're just going to close this guy off real quick. You give him a couple shakes. What's great about these bottles is you can throw them in a cooler, you can throw them in an ice bin, whatever you need to do. They're great for traveling in that kind of arrangement. And after we've done that, we'll just pour it over ice. Now, around these parts, what we like to do, AJ will speak to this as well, is you don't have a Moonarita without a floater. So this is where the barrel cut comes in. But we like to do just a little shot of barrel cut on top, just to give it a little extra something.
I love that.
There you go. And so there's your peach Moonarita with a barrel cut floater.
Perfect. Well, thank you for showing that. I think you're the first one to make the jug. I think that's an awesome idea. I think it's really good, especially, it's getting warmer. It's super hot today. I think that looks super refreshing. I love the idea of the floater too, if you really had a stressful day, right?
Absolutely.
Cody, thanks again for showing us the cocktail recipe. Thanks for going deeper, but I do have a few questions I'd like to ask you. Well, going back to the cocktails, are there any other classic drinks you can use Casey Jones Moonshine for?
Yeah, Paul, that's a great question. And again, what I'll tell you is you might be surprised at what all you can use moonshine for in place of. So, any of your gin-based cocktails will actually do really particularly well with moonshine as a replacement, and vodka-based cocktails as well. But the key is you really need a moonshine that doesn't have that strong corn-forward flavor, and that's what we offer.
Perfect. Well, again, that wraps up my questions about the cocktails. I did want to ask you, we're talking about the spirits, but which of the spirits is your personal favorite?
That is such a tough question to answer. And honestly, it just depends on what kind of space you're in, what kind of headspace you're in when you want to drink. I'm really quite fond of this cocktail with the Old Geezer and using the bourbon for that. But you'd be surprised how good the barrel cut is just as a sipping drink. Just a little bit of barrel cut on the rocks, sitting on the summer, the porch in the summer. That's the way to go.
I'm definitely trying to make a decision as to which one I want. So I think you kind of lead me towards the barrel cut. Maybe I'll get both, right?
Right.
Well, thank you for that. But the last question, a lot of people always, I ask this routinely, but what's in the future for Casey Jones Distillery?
Yeah, well, look, I don't think it takes a crystal ball to figure out that, we're starting with our first bourbon launch with this 1-year-old aged bourbon. And the moment that we launched with this, as it turns out, we've got more bourbon aging a little bit longer. So what's on the horizon is we're going to have more mature bourbons come out in the short run. We'll have one out by the end of this year, which will be a 2-year aged bourbon. And we're going to continue that tradition until we get to a point where we've made the perfect bourbon.
I hope you guys keep going.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate your time, Cody. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear from you. So that's going to conclude our episode. That's number 14 for everyone of Spirit Hub's virtual happy hour. Again, Cody, thank you for taking the time and speaking to us about all the awesome stuff that you guys have, and anyone that's going to be watching this video in the future. If you're interested in buying a bottle, obviously visit us at spirithub.com. We have all of the assortments. So we've got the moonshines and the bourbon. The one thing we are offering is a special promotion. So by using promo code HAPPY14, that's HAPPY14, you'll get 10% off plus free shipping on these awesome spirits. So give that a try. That's valid now until Friday, June 5th. So go ahead and check us out. Cody, you have anything to say?
Well, cheers, you all.
There you go. Well, thanks, everybody, and have a good night and stay safe.
Thank you.